Hello and welcome to Anatomy with Dr. P. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the organs of the endocrine system. We'll start by taking a look at this brain model here. So we can see this area of the brain is our thalamus, and sitting below the thalamus we have this region which is known as the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is involved in things like homeostasis, controlling our autonomic nervous system, but it's also involved in producing hormones. Antidiuretic hormone, also called vasopressin, and oxytocin are both synthesized in our hypothalamus. Attached to the inferior aspect of our hypothalamus is the pituitary gland, which is divided into an anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary is glandular, which means it produces its own hormones, while the posterior pituitary is made up of nervous tissue. It's simply storing antidiuretic and oxytocin that's being produced in the hypothalamus that gets stored in the posterior pituitary and then released from here out into the bloodstream. Up here, sitting on the back of our diencephalon region, we can see this small gland. When anatomists saw this, they thought this area looked like a pine cone, so they named this gland the pineal gland or pineal gland. The pineal gland produces a hormone called melatonin. Now, from here, we're going to move down into the throat region. So if I grab my next model right here, we can see we're moving down into the anterior throat. Right here, we can see our next endocrine organ. It's this bilobed organ here. This is called the thyroid gland. So we can notice it's located in the anterior neck. Now, we're going to take a look at another model that shows this gland. This model right here also shows our thyroid gland. So here's our thyroid. Notice how it's not present on this side of the model. That's because this side has been dissected down a layer, so it's showing deeper structures. Now, the reason this model is important is on the back of our thyroid. So if we turn it around and look on the posterior side, we can see these tiny little aspects here. They kind of look like peach-colored balls. That's the parathyroid gland. So the way I remember this, parathyroid starts with a P because it's on the posterior side of our thyroid. Now, if we continue down into the abdomen region, we can find a few more glands. The first one is this one here. This gland is known as the pancreas. The pancreas sits between our small intestine. The first part of the small intestine here that's kind of this C-shaped region is called the duodenum. And this organ over here, which is the spleen. The spleen would sit in the upper left abdominal quadrant. So our pancreas runs between them. Now, the pancreas is an interesting gland because it produces hormones, things like insulin and glucagon, but it also provides pancreatic juice, which is filled with tons and tons of digestive enzymes. So our pancreas is considered to be both an endocrine organ, but also an accessory organ in the digestive system. Now, in addition to our pancreas, if we go back to this model here and we continue down through the thoracic cavity into the abdominal cavity, we can see these two organs here are our kidneys, and sitting on top of the kidneys we have the two adrenal glands. Remember, the word renal refers to kidney. Adrenal means on top of the kidney. The adrenal gland has two layers. The outermost layer is known as the adrenal cortex. This is where we produce hormones like aldosterone, cortisol, and androgens, while the inner layer is called the adrenal medulla and is where we produce epinephrine and norepinephrine. The adrenal medulla plays an important role in our sympathetic nervous system to help activate our fight or flight responses. Now, if we go back up into the thoracic cavity, we can see a very interesting organ called the thymus. So here on this model, we're taking a look at our thoracic cavity. I can see my heart here. The thymus is this gland that's sitting right on top of the heart. Now, the reason we say the thymus is interesting is this gland is involved in both our immune system as well as serving as an endocrine gland. The hormone it produces is called thymosin, and that's involved in the development and maturation of T cells. Now, what makes it a truly interesting gland is after birth, this gland starts to undergo a process called involution. Involution means it decreases in size with age. So after about the first year of life, the thymus will start shrinking as we start developing our immune system, and by the time we're adults, it's extremely difficult to locate where the thymus might be located. Our last two glands that we're going to talk about are both endocrine glands and reproductive structures. So on this model, we can see this is a male. We know it's a male because it has a penis, scrotum, and testes. So the testes here are considered both a reproductive structure as well as an endocrine gland. They produce sperm in terms of reproduction, but in terms of hormones, they produce the male hormone known as testosterone. Our last structure that we can see is on our female model here. So we know this is a female model because we have a vagina and a uterus present. And if we look on the inside down here, we can see these are the ovaries. The ovaries produce the female sex hormones, estrogens, which are a big family of hormones, and progesterone, the pro-pregnancy hormone.